never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. Only shooting stars break the mold.
Welcome to another episode of the NRL Allstars podcast. Barnesy here, your host of the Allstars podcast, here for another week. This week it is TLT round 4. Now, it's not a full show. It's out a day later. Reason being is because I was on the official show with Tom Sangster and Jet this week. And I did mention on social media that once a month I'll be doing that for Tuesday TLT. And when that happens, I'll just get a short little snippet show that'll be able to come out because I don't have time to do a full one. And you can also see all my thoughts mainly on the official show. So try and follow on social media and you'll see updates like that. I've had a few questions as where's the show and stuff. That's why. But for this week, we've got a quick fire one done in 15 minutes. There was a few things that we spoke about on Tuesday that I didn't get to clarify or that we've got more info on. So a bit controversial. I said that I'd probably want to be selling Ryan Couchman. Now, that was when Tom was insistent that the inside info was that he was going to be gone for 6 weeks. Obviously, we didn't know until he got his 4-week suspension. And now that we do know it's 4 weeks, I would ideally probably be holding him. It's going to be a tough week for teams to do that, though. The other thing was selling Payne Haas. Now, I was hoping that we had a little bit more info by this point, but we don't really. What I had a gut feel on, which I did mention a little bit, but I'm going to expand on now, is that I do think with an AC joint injury, he's going to be managed a little bit. He's already been playing more minutes than what he has for the last 5 or so years, and you have a look at it this season so far. So I do think that you could get away with selling him at the moment. Now, he might be out next week as well at this point. We just don't know. One of the other key things, and I'll do a shout out to NRL Physio because NRL Physio did some great info to subscribers and things showing that in 2022 when Haas had this injury, he was certainly managed and his minutes came down and it also reoccurred on him as well. So shout out to NRL Physio, does great work in the SuperCoach and rugby league community. But I remember this and I was going to talk about it myself as well because I owned him back in 2022 and it was a real tough period because anyone who held him was getting, that 50 to 55 minutes a game sometimes, and then he re-injured that as well, which is easy to do. And I think because he did re-injure it back then, they might be looking at erring on the side of caution this year, which would mean he misses 2 games. It's a lot of money to be on the sideline, and if he misses 2 games and comes back at, 50 to 55 minutes for 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be a rough 5 weeks for Haas owners. So to me, if that happens, I think that it's a really good sell. Now, that might not happen, though. So this is the risk. I wouldn't talk anyone out of holding him because certainly, he could come back next week and kill it. It's Payne Haas. It's a good matchup next week, too, if he does come back and play good minutes and maybe jack some attack. So could go either way. I'm not sure myself, but I will definitely consider selling him. No love for Ford or Jenkins was something else that came up a lot, and particularly for Ford, which we spoke about a lot on the official show. Now, look, I don't want to sound like a Jackson Ford hater. I'm not at all. He's actually a player that I really like and I've always rated quite highly. It's just down to minutes. It's not down to talent. It's not down to, how well he's been playing and all that sort of stuff. It is just minutes, and it is a mathematical equation at the moment. $700,000, averaging 97 points a game is unsustainable at 75 minutes per game, which is also unsustainable. So that's my issue with buying him at the moment. If you got on 2 weeks ago, you'd be laughing, and you can just hold him at the moment as well and see what happens, and maybe he keeps on keeping on. But again, if we look at 2025, you've got a 60-minute score for his 54 minutes, and that was middle minutes he was playing, everyone. Now, when people are saying, look, he's been playing too well to lose his minutes, I don't disagree, but there's a couple of factual things that you've got to take into account. No front rower plays 75 minutes a game. Okay, except for Jackson Ford this year. No one does. When you're looking at 70-plus minutes a game, no one normally does either. Terrell May did it last year. He's not doing it this year, okay? When you look at the 60-plus minute a game props, there's only a few. It is the elite guys. It is Koloamatangi, it is Payne Haas, and it is May still in the 60s. Outside of that, I don't think there's any other front rowers that are playing 60-plus minutes a game. So it isn't that he's, going to be punished or lose his role or anything. It still does acknowledge that he's, up and coming and playing really well and their best front rower potentially. If he gets 58 minutes a game, that's a good role for him. and it's a good front rower's role. But it does mean for SuperCoach, it just hurts him immensely. At the moment, he's got 0.2 points per game that he loses off his average straight away if he's at around 58 minutes a game, 60 minutes a game. 19, 20 points. Now, people will say, look, that still gives him a 77 average. That's right, because he's averaging 97 at the moment. The problem is that he's got 2 tries in his first 3 games. And whilst he can hit attack, that's not sustainable either, that he's scoring in 66% of his games. So when you take that down, all of a sudden you're looking at, look, maybe he has a breakout season still, but he's a late 60s guy. That's still good, okay? But there is a floor where he's about 62 points per game. And there is the worst case scenario where he gets benched. Now, I don't think that will happen, but you've got to go through the minutes as well, even if he's starting. Barnett played 35 minutes a game in his first game back. First game. He's eventually got to get higher than that. Where do those minutes come from if they're not coming from Jackson Ford? Well, Aaron Clark only played 50 minutes last week, and he was their best forward last year. So Aaron Clark's not going to go to sub 40 minutes a game. When you're having a look at Fisher Harris, he's sort of in that 58 minutes last week range. Maybe he loses 5 minutes a game, but again, he's not going to lose much more than that. And ideally, I believe they'll probably want Barnett at 50 minutes a game. There's an extra 15 minutes there. So you have to think that at least 10 of that is going to come from forward because of the high minutes. Now, again, if he plays 65 minutes, he's still going to be a keeper and it's still a decent buy. Okay, I don't want to sound like it's a terrible one. But if he plays 60 minutes a game, it becomes not a great buy. And all of this is down to price, everyone. $700,000. Do you really think he's going to be better with those reduced minutes at Keon Koloamatangi? Do you really think that he's going to be better than Terrell May? Do you think that he's going to be better than Payne Haas? And the answers should be no on those guys. I don't think that that's feasible. He can still have a great year. Now, to finish off on the Jackson Ford hate, and it really isn't hate, I really like him. It's just one of those things where if he was cheaper, it would work out. I don't see it as a great trade because I think that all these other options are there. Now, the money-wise, I had people say, yeah, but he can make money, Barnesy, and we can trade him to one of those guys as a stepping stone. He's only got a -7 break even, and this is a problem with price points. At $700,000, he doesn't have much room to make money. He's going to have that first score drop out after this week, which is still going to give him a nice break even, probably around the same. And then he's going to have a ton drop out, and then all of a sudden his break even is going to be 30s or 40s. He's going to plateau out. He may very well only make 50 or 60K over the next few weeks and then start losing money. So again, if you're looking at it like a stepping stone, it's not worth the 2 trades. You'd rather wait until next week and get Keon Koloamatangi. You'd rather get a cheaper guy this week in Paseka, bank money, and get a Keon Koloamatangi or someone else next week that's more expensive. It's one of those opinions that I've got on him and I've got on the trade. Okay, it could work out. I don't know everything, just my take on it. When we're having a look at Jenkins, now, I don't really love Jenkins either. I think he's going great. He could go well this week, but I've got similar concerns with Jenkins. At the moment, you're looking at paying almost 700K for him, and it's going to be tough because you expect someone who's averaging 105 points per game this year in 3 games. They have a really good negative break even. He's got a 14 break even. So he's not even going to make a massive amount of money. If you're getting him in, you're hoping that he's just going to keep up what he's doing, which is impossible because he's scoring 105 points per game. So 700K, he has a decent matchup against the Eels, and then he goes into the Bulldogs and the Storm, who are the worst matchups for Penrith Panthers. So it's not a good 3 weeks. So again, there's all these options there that you could get instead of a Jenkins. If you go on Jenkins early, great. You'd be looking at selling him probably in the next couple of weeks. Pod time. Let's talk pods. Valhaves is my favourite pod this week. $700,000, 6% ownership. Last 3 scores against the Titans of 97, 93, and 56. Big game this week on Sunday as well. But the Dragons have got huge pressure on them to get a win. And he's been firing anyway, even without the Dragons winning, which is the thing that I mentioned on the official show to Tommy. I love it because, he's been able to average 76 points per game this year when the Dragons been poor. He did 75 points per game last year when the Dragons 58 weren't great. It's really good because when they do have some big games, like possibly Sunday, he can turn up very easily. So at 6% ownership, love it. I'm also going to say that Hughes is a guy that I love this week against the Cowboys as well, especially as a pod move against the Cleary ownership that's climbing. when you look at Hughes, he's done pretty well against his old club, averaging 75 points per game. That makes him a top 6 opposition. But there's a good argument that the Storm are going really well at the moment in the Cowboy part. And then Storm are going to want to bounce back from a poorer effort last week compared to the rest of their season. So all of a sudden, Hughes looks, really enticing. And then when you factor in that Cleary might be 40% owned this week and Hughes is going to be 7% owned, well, to me, that's a really good way to make up some ground. He will play the first big buy round as well, so you can try and keep him a bit longer term. The last pod watch is Finny Tuiaki. We mentioned a lot on this podcast. I'm just going to say I still think he's an option. He's going to be running against that Broncos edge. I think that he's a special to get a try this week. And at his price point, I think he's a really, really good value option. If you need a front rower, though, Isaiah Papali'i, another guy that's very similar to Finny Tuiaki, who running at that Eels edge could end up getting some meat this week as well. We're going to go through a couple more before we do. Just quick mention of the great sponsor and partner of the NRL All-Stars podcast in One World Courier. You can go to oneworldcourier.com.au today and check them out. Free to sign up for an account, everyone. Just sign up and have a look if your business or whoever you work for has any shipping or freight needs. They are the people to talk to. When you sign up, it says, where did you hear about One World Courier? Put NRL All-Stars podcast. That way they know you came from here. They'll take great care of you and give you some good rates to start with. But basically, when you jump on their website and sign in, you can put in what you want to send, where you want to send it to, and it will give you all the different carriers you can choose and all the different rates. You just pick whatever one you want. They take care of it all for you after that. So it's a fantastic service, and they've been supporting the All-Stars podcast for 3 years now. So go get on them if you have any freight, shipping, or courier needs. Start. Couple just to quickly mention, I'm really liking the Storm this week with that matchup against the Cowboys. So I do think that if you've got fringe guys like Leo, you could bite the bullet and start him as a bit of a pod move, because I think that a lot of people are going to bench him after his last effort of 35 points. Dragons this week against the Titans. Setu, I love starting Setu this week against the Titans. I think it's special to get a try, and it could be a real bust-out game for him. And it is at the end of the week too. So if you're behind in your head-to-heads and you're a head-to-head player, you can make a late switch and get Setu into your 18 as well and hope for a big score and maybe a double. C and VC options for this week. Tedesco, I think, is a really good VC option for the Thursday night game. It did just thunderstorm in Sydney, but it looks like it's already passed within 10 minutes, which is pretty good. Hopefully it doesn't rain tonight. It's not meant to, particularly at Manly. But I think 2 out of the last 3, Teddy has actually scored 100 plus against the Manly Sea Eagles, and 2 out of the last 3 have been 36 and 44 points. I think the Roosters have put on. So they can have some good games against Manly. Obviously, Manly's not defending great. The Roosters do need a bounce back. They were pounded by Penrith, but they scored pretty good points round 1 and 2. So Teddy VC looks pretty likely as an option, and it's also going to be a real pod one as well, and an easy loop being the first Thursday game. Walsh, last game against the Dolphins, Walsh scored 155 points. That is massive. It did include goal kicking, but the Broncos are obviously under pressure, and sometimes when teams are under pressure, they fire, and the Dolphins can let in some points when they're playing well. I don't even think they've been playing that well lately. Certainly, Payne Haas being out could be a worry, but I do think that Walsh is a great trade this week, and if you've got him, a really easy VC option to look at. Possibly a C, but that's a bit more ballsy. Cleary is a really popular option, and I'm not going to talk people off it because I know that Cleary can definitely put up a great score, averaging 81 points per game at the moment. Against the Eels, though, really surprising stat. The 3 worst opposition for Nathan Cleary to play against that are all between 56 and 65 point game averages with a lot of games played. The Melbourne Storm, the Canterbury Bulldogs, and the Parramatta Eels as a bottom 3 opposition for him. So historically, Cleary has not played well against the Eels. I don't think they've been hugely better previously than what they are at the moment either. It's a really interesting stat there. I'd love to VC Cleary rather than see him, but you might not have as many options later on. I think Fa'alongo is one that a lot of people are looking at the moment, and for good reason. Definitely it's a matchup where I think you can get a couple of tries. Because there is so many other options this week, though, particularly people that are bringing in Walsh, particularly those that are putting the C on Cleary, you might get a few less people on Fa'alongo this week than previously. He's already got a 155-point game this year already, and he can get to 100 plus pretty easily. He's a try-scoring machine, and you'd think that he's good for an 80-pluser this week at minimum, and he's got that upside if he can get a double or if the Storm put on a clinic. Now, there is potential for the Storm to do it. They've already gone 50 plus once on the team this year. The Cowboys aren't playing great. And when I'm talking about that, we can talk about some pod ones for the captaincy option. Jerome Hughes, already mentioned it, but it just all lined up for him to be a bit of a pod captaincy option. Hines, now it looks like a bad matchup going to GIO Stadium, but 48 points last game versus the Raiders marries up with that. Go back a year prior, and his other 2 games in his last 3 scored 94 and 160 versus the Raiders. The 160 was at GIO Stadium. He scored 81 last week in a really poor Cronulla side that got done badly by the Dolphins. So I think that Hines is always an option to bust out with 100+. And the Hail Mary option of the round, the one to finish on. Hail Mary option, high risk, high reward, Valentine Holmes. If the Dragons do step up and fire on points versus the Titans, he can get to 100+ very easily. And we all know that his ceiling is high, scoring 150+ previously. So that's my take on the round, with some things that I didn't get to discuss on the official podcast. Hopefully you take something out of it. Hopefully you don't hate me too much. If you want to buy guys like Ford and I disagree on it, that's all right. It happens. But enjoy the round. We've got the Roosters and Manly tonight. And certainly we'll be back next week with the podcast as per normal programming. So likely Mikey and me. Wilfred's coming on in the next few weeks as well, along with some other guests. But good luck with your round. Jump on all of our social media. Make sure you subscribe, please, on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Until next week, though, good luck. Can't wait to talk more footy again with everyone real soon.
You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now.